If you are lacking in your relationship in terms of your joy and your happiness and your fulfillment in your relationship with your woman, I guarantee you there's at least like three things that you're doing wrong. And I know this from both my personal experience plus the amount of people that I've seen in relationships as well make a lot of the same mistakes over and over and over again, which takes away from the quality of your relationships and could possibly even break it. Like, could you imagine having a woman that you love so much and there's just certain things in your mind that plague your mind and you have negative thoughts and you can't control your mind, and that causes your woman to leave you or it causes her to be unhappy? Like, if you could imagine how painful that is, it's not good. And what I want to do is help you not reach that demise. So I'm going to go over at least three things in this video that you can do to quit doing to improve your relationship with your woman. The first thing is to stop with the cuck fantasy. You have to stop thinking that your wife is going to cheat on you. You have to stop thinking that your girl is going to cheat on you. So this video might have hit your feed at the perfect time if lately you've been having a lot of fear and you're not telling anybody about this either. This is just you in your mind, 1v1, you against you. You are having fears that your girl is gonna go and cheat on you. There might be signs, there might not be signs, but at the end of the day, especially if it's early on in the relationship and there's a lot of emotions connected to that relationship, you might have that fear. It might be rational, it might be irrational, you might have been cheated on in the past, or maybe not, but you have that fear. Now, until you get rid of that fear, you will not be happy in your relationship. I remember when I first started dating my now wife, which was over 2 years ago, I was plagued with the idea that she could possibly go and cheat on me. Now, this was a completely irrational, illogical fear because there was no evidence that would prove that she wanted to do that, was tempted to do that, or that she had any desire to do that. However, in my mind, the looping, recurring thought in my mind over and over and over again was, she's gonna cheat on me, she's gonna cheat on me, you know, she's texting other guys, da 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 da. My mind couldn't rest for the first few weeks or maybe the first month or two of my relationship. Now, I'm glad that I was able to get over that fear so early on, and that's only because of some things that I learned through mentorship and through praying and just understanding my connection with my own person. And basically what I did to stop the cuck fantasy was, first of all, to have a bit more confidence in myself. Because when you have an irrational fear of thinking that your girl is cheating on you, usually it's because you don't think very highly of yourself. If you are somebody and throughout your life you've struggled with low self-esteem, as I have before, then what that causes is for you to think that you're inferior. And the natural inclination of the cuck fantasy is to think that your woman is going to get stolen or dominated by some man who is bigger, stronger, better than you in some way, shape, or form. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're in a relationship, if that woman chose you to be in a relationship with, you have to understand that you are the chosen one, that you at least were good enough to acquire that woman. Now, what is important to get rid of this fantasy is, of course, to have a better self-concept of your mind, but also to understand and develop a little bit of grace and trust in your woman. Because if you have these cuck fantasies in your mind and it causes you to not have as much trust with your woman, and so, for example, you're going through her phone more often, or you're hyper scrutinizing who she talks to or where she goes, your woman is going to feel constricted and trapped, and she's not going to feel like her own person. Resentment will grow, which is how cheating actually happens. So the best way to just get rid of this is to stop it before it starts. You have to have a level of detachment when it comes to that fear. And you have to have also a level of detachment when it comes to the relationship. Because one thing that, as I was easing myself out of that fear, I started to develop a level of detachment where my fear was still there. It was completely irrational, but I came to a point where I understood, like, hey, if this actually happens, if I did what I could do in the relationship, if I was the best person that I could be, if I was the best partner that I possibly could be, but that person went and did that anyway, what can I do about it? Nothing. Like, you can't control that. The only thing that you'd be able to do is just pick up the pieces and move on, because life goes on. Unfortunately, there are people who are going to go and do stuff like that regardless. But the idea is to build yourself up into a really good person before you meet that person, so that you're not stuck with a low quality person who would betray your trust. So once you get rid of that cuck fantasy and you stop believing that, you know, the world is out to get you and that your woman's gonna betray you, I promise you, you will feel a lot happier. And if you can even go as far, like, if that's something that you're struggling with right now, I promise you, if you get past that, there is light at the end of the tunnel, because your relationship improves a lot once you get past that phase. So if you can just implement at least that one thing, you will not fail in your relationship. It's a big obstacle to overcome if you're the kind of person who overthinks a lot and you have like anxious attachment and a lot of anxiety. That's the best way to get over that. And so another thing that I quit doing to have a better relationship, and ultimately this made me husband quality. So again, if you listen to these things, I promise you, you will not fail. From my own personal experience, like I'm 2 years strong. I'm gonna be with this woman until I'm 80, 85. I'm gonna be with the same woman until death do us part. Like, I swear to God, because we have learned the correct lessons and we have developed ourselves into the right kind of people to stay together forever. And that's what I hope to have for you. Because if you can just have the right mindset and become the right kind of person for it, you will not fail in your relationships. So the second thing that I did and that I quit in order to have a better relationship is I stopped complaining. Period. Like, I don't complain anymore, ever. Now, there are times when I start to complain, but I catch myself now, because one thing that I've noticed about my wife and women in general is they do not like complainers. Women like to complain about stuff, but they don't like it when you complain. Because when a woman complains and when a man complains, it's different. Because women, they will have complaints from a perspective of releasing their emotions, because it's in their essence and natural nature to do so. Women are not meant to detach and decompartmentalize like men are. Because men, we can take input, negative input into our mind, we can shove it into a folder in our mind somewhere and just move on, you know? Like, bad shit happens, but we're just like, fuck it, we ball, that's it, right? I know every day I do that. I don't got time to complain about shit. I got a lot of shit to complain about in my life right now. But I learned that to improve my relationships and even to improve my life in general, like, you cannot have complaints. Because I specifically remember, this was actually just last night. My wife and I were having a conversation. We had received some negative news about our finances. It turns out we just filed our taxes and we're gonna be owing more in taxes than I thought we were going to. And I was kind of pissed about it, you know. I was pissed off at the accountant. I was pissed off at the system, and I have very strong, emotionally charged political beliefs, right? So I'm talking about how, like, you know, this is bullshit. We pay our taxes to billionaire pedophiles who touch children on islands and shit like that. And I'm just da 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 da. And then I start to notice, like, my wife, when she was facing me, she starts to turn away from me and she starts to shut down in the conversation. And what I realized is that, you know, I'm bringing negativity into the safe space, because as a man who, if God puts you in charge of your household, your responsibility to both your woman and to yourself is to not bring negativity into your own house. I brought negativity into the house and it caused the conversation to shut down. And that's just a small example of how complaining can just bring the whole mood down. Because like the song goes, girls just want to have fun, right? Girls and women in general, like most people, don't want to be surrounded by a negative environment. But for women who are more in tune with their emotions, especially if you have a woman who's a bit more sensitive and shy like mine is, right? You have to be choicefully careful about the words that you say. So for example, I speak to my wife in a much softer manner than I talk to other people in my life. If I am talking to, for example, one of like my brother or one of my guy friends or something like that, I can be a lot more brash and bold and harsh in my terms of how I speak. I can be a bit more aggressive in how I speak because that's my natural mannerisms as a guy. Generally, I'm quite aggressive when I speak, and it's not to like attack anybody. It's because I have strong passion behind what I say, because if I'm not passionate about what I say, I don't say nothing at all. But for my woman, the way that you go about speaking is different, because women don't grow through, criticism. They don't grow through competition, but they grow through praise and they grow through kindness. So when I want to grow my relationship with my woman, I'm not going to say to her, for example, like, shut up and grow up and all the different stuff that we say as men, but instead I'm going to compliment her. I'm going to be gentle with her. I'm going to speak in a softer tone. I'm going to kiss her. I'm going to hold her. I'm going to move slower because I'm not a threat. Once I understood what that means and what that entails, my relationship improved so much because my wife felt safer with me. She knew and could trust that when something bad happens, I'm not gonna blow up. That when I have a bad day, I'm not gonna complain. Like, you might remember being a kid, and I remember as a kid too, right? Your parents coming home from work and they've had a long day. They're usually in a bad mood. And when you come home and your parents are going to be in a bad mood because they've had a long day, you tend to want to hide from them, right? You want to, not face their wrath and face their fury. And so it creates this level of tension and anxiety that a lot of us grow up with because the previous generation didn't understand that level of mental health like we do now. And so when I think about what I want my household to be, as a husband, as a long-term partner with my woman, I'm responsible for my wife's mental health. I'm responsible for her mental well-being. And one thing that I did to really help improve her well-being was to just be very intentional and careful about the way that I speak. And because I stopped complaining, it made all the difference in the world. So again, if you do that, you will not fail in your relationship. You will not fail at all. And so I quit doing that. I quit the cuck fantasy. And one last thing that I quit doing as well in this relationship that caused me to have this relationship that's going to go on and on and on forever and ever and ever. And it caused us to just have imminent levels of success in our joy and our happiness and our fulfillment, was as my role as a man, I needed to quit not having boundaries. So before I met my wife, and even for a period of time when I was with her, one habit that I didn't even realize that I had before getting into the relationship was I did not set my own boundaries as a person. I would I was a go with the flow kind of guy. I would do whatever people wanted me to do. I would be whoever people wanted me to be. And beyond that being one of the worst mistakes that I've ever made in my entire life was becoming that kind of person, unlearning that was quite a rough and tough and challenging experience. So for example, if you feel guilty about spending too much time with your woman, or if you feel guilty about not, taking care of your responsibilities, maybe because you guys are spending too much time together, or if in general you just feel irresponsible as a person, or you feel like there's things that that person does that bothers you a lot, but you don't speak up about it, you have to. Because ultimately, if you don't set boundaries in your relationship, it creates resentment. And when it creates resentment, it creates tension, which creates fighting, which could divide you. I know I've seen this before in my life where other people, when they were in relationships, for example, there'd be things that guys would say that would bother women a lot. I remember hearing one woman talk about how this guy would always make jokes about her weight. And because she didn't have any like visceral reaction to it whenever he would say these obscene jokes about her weight, he didn't really realize that what he was saying was hurting her. So he was causing damage to the relationship and not realizing it. But at the same time, she didn't speak up for herself. And so it caused her to resent him and feel bad about herself all in one. So what that caused is that caused this like invisible tension in the relationship. So eventually the love stops coming. It stops getting as romantic. The sex stops happening and no one knows why. But ultimately they find out that one day she tells him like, look, the fat jokes are like really, they make me feel horrible every time. And so after he stopped doing that, their relationships improve a lot. So one thing that I did was I took an evaluation of my relationship, and I honestly asked myself like, what bothers me? And to be honest with you, there wasn't much, because I have a very good connection with my woman. Like, our personalities line up very well. We have a lot in common. We're very respectful and understanding to each other. But I do remember, especially when I started college some time ago, I would take classes online, and there'd be periods of time in which I would need to study, after work, because I was still working a full-time job while studying. My wife would want to spend time with me, of course, natural, but I would need to study. And so early on, there would be some tension there because we would want different things and we would both want to get our way. I'd want to study, she'd want to, have like the intentional relational time. And so I spoke up and I was like, look, when I need to study, like, I need to be completely focused. If I don't turn around and look at you, if I don't give you any attention when I'm studying, it's not because I don't love you. It's not because I don't care about you. It's because I need to do X, Y, and Z, right? After putting it out there and not yelling at her, not making her feel bad about herself, not saying that she's a bitch or this or that, like no insults, no arguing, no fuss, no tension, just, this is what bothers me. This is how I feel. And, that person, if they're really good to you as a partner, they're going to respect that, right? And and you guys are going to work together to have a relationship that respects both of you as people, because a lot of times we lose ourselves in relationships and we just become like this one sentient being and we kind of lose our own personalities. But a relationship thrives when you two can both be your own individual people, but be together as people. So the two becomes one flesh. However, you maintain your sense of individuality, and you also are able to keep the things that you enjoy in your life as well. And the responsibilities that you need to take care of, you keep that in your life as well. And so once I started being a bit more firm with my boundaries, and I stopped and I stepped more into my masculine frame, and I had confidence that what I was asking wasn't like irrational or anything like that. Even though at times we would spend less time together, the time that we did spend together ended up being more valuable. And so those three things right there are just a couple of the things that I stopped doing once I got into the relationship that improved my life so much. So if you take these things, I promise you, you will not fail. Like, you'll go from, maybe just being roommates to actually being lovers again. So just you work out these issues and you'll be good to go. Now, if you watch this and you're still a little confused, I can help you personally. I do offer a one-to-one coaching service for guys who are in relationships who might feel like they're just roommates with their girl, or they're fighting a lot, or they feel like their relationship's about to end and they want to put the relationship back together. We can get on a one-to-one call. I have a premium service that if you make sense for it, you can actually register for it with me, and I can help you with whatever problem it might be in pertaining to your relationship with your woman. So the link is in the description to learn about it. And I thank you for watching. I appreciate you, and I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Thank you. Peace.